My upgrades are invincible. Chapter 83, Fantasy Fiction by Azazyel. You know, you live in a fantasy land when someone who had a tumor in her lung that was also fucking with her heart still had a well-developed body. But even with the falna, Materia still clearly had terrible levels of stamina, body, and magically wise as she couldn't shoot the magical crossbow for long. Haahaa. That was fun, but I think I need a breather. Materia spoke as Eris was holding the magical crossbow while Materia was leaning partly against me and the railing of the ship. Well, I think this is a good method for you to train yourself, Materia, I spoke supportingly as I gave her back a gentle pat. The best way for Materia to become stronger and more healthy was to fill out the stats of her falna. And using a long-distance weapon that used her stamina and magic was the safest way for her to grow by far. Ugh, I hate mine down. Can you two give me some or something? Materia whined and Eris and I both chuckled. Eris then spoke with some curiosity. May I try to use the crossbow? I gave the blind swordswoman a look and said slowly. Sure. Just try not to push too much mana through it. She hefted up the crossbow. And then she aimed it towards the water and I couldn't see anything in the water in the distance. Until a loud crack far louder than anything I had heard when I shot the thing rang out that made Materia cover her ears as a blinding beam of white mana shot out from the crossbow and into the water. Less than like 5% of my mind. Eris spoke as I watched as the remains of the bisected turtle monster floated back up to the surface. And then I looked back at the crossbow and my lips twitched as it was clear the weapon wasn't suited for such high power with its limited reinforcements as the front of the crossbow was glowing red. Yeah. I didn't make the crossbow with level 7s in mind. I said dryly. Eris didn't break it, did she? Materia asked with concern and I shook my head before saying. No. If she shot again it would explode in her hands like an ignis faustus going off in her face. But no, once it cools down it will be perfectly fine. I refocused on Materia in particular and after a moment I asked. By the way, Materia, have the physicals done on you after taking the elixir shown any issues? Materia seemingly snapped to attention and she spoke quickly. Yes. They have. Could you give me another physical like before back in Oreo? I blinked as I saw her shifting in place and nodded. I gave Eris a look and spoke. Sure, let's head inside the ship. Eris, you want to watch? To which Eris gave Materia a deadpan look before she said dryly. No, I am quite alright. You two have fun. I should watch for monsters even if this ship is still too big for them to climb onto. Before I could say anything I felt Materia grab my arm and she dragged me into the top cabin of the ship with her stepping away from me once the door closed behind us as we entered. Alright, Materia, can you please tell me how you are feeling? I spoke as I stood in front of her and I guided her to sit on a bar stool that was nailed into the floor. The white-haired beauty took a deep breath and laid a hand across her breast that was only slightly smaller than her older sister's before she spoke quietly. I have a bit of a burning pain in my chest. She spoke softly. I raised an eyebrow and I wondered. Heartburn? Or are there some remnants of her magical cancer? She took a deep breath and spoke. Whenever I do some stuff, it makes my heart tighten up in my chest. And I feel this rolling sensation in my stomach. I gently placed a hand on her back and extended my senses to focus on her body as I spoke kindly. Take a good couple of breaths for me. She did so. And her breathing was so much better than before. Hell, honestly it was completely different. But her heart was pounding inside her chest. I could easily feel her heart beating and a slight rise of red entering her pale skin around her neck, ears, and the much exposed flesh of her shoulder and collarbones as her summer dress was held up by a couple of thin straps. I am not stupid. She is embarrassed at our interaction due to the brush and almost certainly the raised heart rate. Now the question is, does she have any issues at all actually? I wondered. So the tumor is gone, right, Materia? I spoke as I removed my hand and stood in front of her so I could meet her flushed gaze. And after a moment I saw Materia bite her lower lip and nod before she lowered her gaze to her hands that were wringing themselves in her lap. Well, that's good. Though I do have some supplements that will help your falna grow, though they have some bodily reactions. Just keep them to yourself. I don't want other familiars learning about them, even Haahaa, please. I spoke as I took a couple of bottles of my falna-enhancing supplements. She blinked at seeing the bottles before she quickly nodded and then flushed a bit deeper as she twisted in place with a grin crossing her face as she spoke quietly. You trust me with the secret? To which I shrugged and said honestly. I probably shouldn't. But you are a cutie and I want you healthy. Materia gave me a long look before she spoke slowly. Jake, can I see your hand real quick while you close your eyes? I raised an eyebrow at the odd request. And then I slowly nodded to hold out my hand to her and then I closed my eyes fully. Her small soft hands filled my own. Soft hands that didn't fit on an adventure, and filled with the same gentle softness that Materia was comprised of as a person. And then she pulled my hand forward and I froze as my hand landed between two very soft things and my eyes snapped open as Materia turned dark pink as she whispered seeing me look at her. I want you to feel my heart. I love you, I think. The way her tongue skipped over love was just fucking adorable, and in between feeling the rise and fall of her breasts between my hands, I could feel her little rabbit heart galloping as she waited for me to give an answer.